Hello everybody, it's Bubba Rob. How's it going? I'm gonna have a discussion with my nephew Max here today. He wants to get his own podcast going, and I don't know if I'm much of an expert, but I know a little bit more than others. And first, I really want to congratulate him because he wants to do something and put something out there to help people in society and put the good and the love out. But before we get into this, I want to tell you a Max story. It's my favorite Max story. You ready, Max?
Hallelujah.
Yeah. The funny thing is, when Max was little, my sister used to call him Maxie. And they were having a birthday party at their house, and she had all her friends there, and she kept going, Maxie, Maxie. And I was in the background, and every time she said Maxie, I'd say Pat. So I'm kind of glad I did it because he's growing up with a little bit thicker skin for it. And we have a good giggle about it now, but I don't call him Maxie Pat anymore. But, you know, it's okay. He's a good man. So anyways, Max, are you ready? Are you ready for this? People are listening. They're watching. They want to know, I guess, maybe what my answers will be, but we'll find out what's in your peanut upstairs to see what kind of questions you ask.
Yeah. Well, I do want to also add the first job I had when I was working in a kitchen when I was 14. One of my nicknames was Maxi Pad. So,
really?
Yeah. So you prepped me for that a little bit.
Okay. Well, I won't make any ketchup jokes, I guess. Sorry, people. Sorry for that. Might cut that out. But no, Max. What do you want to ask your Uncle Rob?
Yeah. Oh, I was just kind of curious about your careers and kind of your hobbies as well, and kind of going into that and what you found about healing and love and understanding and forgiveness.
Okay, well, I guess to start the careers, I was actually called a Renaissance man by a customer once.
Oh yeah, what job were you working?
I was just doing a hauling cleanup job, actually.
Okay.
And I think I had left for corrections already, but, you know, when I was young, I wanted to be a power engineer, but there wasn't much call for them back then. So, you know, I went to college and took a year of business. I found it really boring. I was more interested in going to the gym and working out. And I took some time off, and I also did a year's volunteer work at a place called Uptown Education with young adults that were in an alternative program, like high school age. And then I decided I wanted to work with youth. So I went into the criminal justice program at Camosun College. And just before, in the last semester, I went up to the correctional center where one of my instructors was a deputy director at the time, to go see him about what I wanted to do with my life. So I went there, and the training officer, Les Stevenson, came out to meet me. I think he had 3 application forms and handed them to me. He says, you know, we're hiring right now. And Mr. Stiles said he believes you're a good person for this place, and he wanted you to apply. So I never did get my meeting with him, but I took it home and I applied, and next thing I know, I got hired, and then I did a couple of weeks of in-house training, and then they sent me over to the Justice Institute of BC for a month. And then I went to work. I kind of fell into it. It wasn't something really that I wanted to do. I wanted to work more with youth, but, you know, I've kind of always fallen into things, and that was, you know, and then there was some positive and negative experiences with that. I think what it did, though, for the positive side, is it allowed me the ability to get to know people and to read people,
Mm-hmm.
which actually helped me in business. It also gave me a sense of compassion for people that have addiction issues. I've got definite um, very strong opinions on that, on family units and abuses that go on. I had many conversations and read many files on different people. Um, I was gonna go get my master's degree in social work, but after working there, I just kind of had enough. I also studied a year Pacific Rim studies, studying Japanese history and language
Oh, cool.
and Chinese history. And then when I left corrections, I had this hauling business going on the side. And then I went to Royal Roads University and did a systems analyst DBA diploma. It was a 2 year or a 1 year course. It was actually a 2 year course, but it was accelerated. And then what I found, and that was right when the .com bubble burst. So I always kind of had this hauling business going, and then I got my class 1. I did some long hauling, but I always went back to what made me happy, which was keeping my hands busy. Then, as I grew, I got more equipment. I got a skid steer, and then I got a mini excavator. I started doing sod work, perimeter drains, driveway prep, and all this stuff, breaking rock, digging foundations, demolition work, and kind of went from there. So that's kind of my career path. One thing is with my business, I had a helper. His name was Dean, and he had like 5 different disabilities. And he was pretty much pretty much Forrest Gump. Like if you watch Forrest Gump, he was pretty much, that was him.
Mm-hmm.
Talked like him, acted like him. It was kind of funny. When I hired Dean, I wasn't sure if I could take it, but I took him aside. I said, "Listen," I said, "Dean," I said, "I got a question to ask you." He goes, "What is it?" So, "You want to be treated like everybody else?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you're gonna fucking get it." And I said, I will give it to you. You have to come to work and do what you say you're going to do and show." And he was phenomenal that way. He would always show up. A lot of times I had to re-show him the same job a lot of times, but he had the ability to learn, and it taught me a lot of humility and patience. He was an extremely kind person. He couldn't hurt a fly. Some people thought I was too strict or actually mean to him, but if I wasn't tough on him, he would revert back to this, how would you say it? Almost like a childlike quality. And he wasn't getting anywhere because nobody held him accountable for what he was doing. So he actually really progressed. I remember one time I had to go for a meeting with his parents. The psych assessment by the province was done, and we would meet every couple of years and go over that stuff. And his mom were the nicest people. And his dad asked me, he says, "I don't understand this report." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, they say he's on a cognitive decline, but all we ever see is that he's progressing with you. What are you doing to get him to progress?" I was joking around. I said I got a cattle prod. They didn't know what to think when I said that, but it was the truth. But I believe if people are held accountable for their actions, they can move forward, and that's the biggest problem I think we're facing right now is people feel they can just effing do whatever they want and not be accountable and not apologize, and they're trying to be, our parents are being too friendly with their kids. They don't hold them to I'm not saying it's right to
Would you call it coddling with the kids, or would you kind of call it like actually being, a father informing and giving understanding kind of problem?
no, I think what it is, well, maybe a bit, but the way things are in society, you got two parents that have to work. So the attention span isn't there.
And also they do often a job where they're gone a large portion of their time away from their children, and then they don't teach the children the same trade as they did as a career. So there's a disconnect in skill and understanding there as well.
Well, I think there's just a disconnect in communication, especially with the advent of the cell phone, like what we're using filming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have the conversation with your kids, how are they supposed to grow up or have any respect? And what I mean is, as far as discipline goes, like I'm very lucky, and my kids, because they're your cousins, they're really good people.
Mm-hmm.
There was never a hand raised to them or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe I had, and even their mom, even though we're not together, had a way, I don't know if fear is the right word or not, that they knew that once that line was crossed, that was it. And I really think the main reason that worked is because we had a lot of respect for them as human beings. Right? We didn't pick their friends. We didn't tell them who they can hang out with. They're very respectful, and also the activities that we put them in stimulated their independence, i.e., the martial arts. My daughter went to her brown belt. My son's got his black belt, and when he was in Japan, he was doing stick fighting and weapons training and boxing at the university there. And also, very early, they started with early childhood music, and my daughter was composing music on the piano, I think by the time she was like 4 or 5 years old. So they're very artistic. So
kind of giving them tools to find their own nature in some sense, right?
Well, yeah, because what I found out when I worked in corrections, and which is different than when I was growing up, is this is my thought, and I was lucky their mom agreed with me, is that we didn't want them to follow the crowd, right? There's too much
mainstream kind of stuff, right?
Well, I think what happens is nothing
yeah.
against like football or hockey. I mean, I played those sports and fastball and swam, and I was in archery, but I wanted them to learn to be individuals, because what I was seeing in society from where I was at was I didn't like the way I saw people getting picked on, the hierarchy, like in the correctional system, right? I wanted them to be individuals and to be honest, and not allow other people to take them down a bad path. So they had to be strong. So if you're not a strong individual, what the fuck are you? You're nothing. I mean, we've all got our problems, our trauma, and all this stuff, right? But if you can't hold yourself to account and not go down that path.
Well, really what I'm hearing there is that the real strength is in humility.
Oh, for sure.
right? Yeah, because
For
that's
sure.
actually uh, something that enables you to grow. And something I've talked about friends even recently, and will be heard on when I do start releasing some podcast stuff, is that football is a very warlike mentality by a lot of coaches. I get you to completely throw yourself in a dangerous position and disassociate from your own body instead of necessarily teaching you skill and confidence and healing, and that we have each other's backs, which is a much stronger sense. And what the U.S. military does, they specialize people,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. It's not so much of this hoorah,
See,
put your head down into it kind of
see,
thing.
the one thing I would like to see if it's in the school system
Hmm.
is, and people might laugh at this, but it's not funny, is that there needs to be some education in philosophy. They got to teach young people the skills to be present. They got to make sure that their nutrition is good. And I don't see any reason why they couldn't have a class in meditation or yoga or something.
Well, at some point, it's a physical education, how to regulate your own body functions as well.
Well, that's true, but
Yeah.
you know, here's the other thing too is, and this is kind of open for debate. You know, we can blame the school system or the government or whatever about our children, especially the whole woke thing and how people are upset about what's going on. And you know, I won't even go down that road. But ultimately, it's the parents' responsibility for the upbringing of their child. Like, if you don't teach your kid to wipe their ass the wrong direction, they're always going to have a mess. Is that not true or what? I mean, it just goes without saying. Pardon for the I don't know the analogy there, or the visual for some people, but it's true.
Well, I think that there's so many parents that are so ashamed of their body that they don't give basic hygiene instructions to their kids, and I think that is actually very accurate.
I don't think they do either. It's you know, it's kind of sad, and you know, there needs to be, there hasn't been a good reset since the whole pandemic stuff and the mental health issues with what's going on. But
well, I think that put a lot of it on steroids. He's a lot. It, yeah. Well, but one of the things that you're kind of talking about, the parents not giving understanding to the kids, especially growing up, and it being their responsibility, is how 80% of jobs aren't passed and skills aren't passed on to the kids, and it's something that you've had the I don't know if it's the luxury, but the opportunity to have with your son, with Charles, like have him work with you, and have him have an idea of what kind of work you do, and how it's almost like, even in the sense of playing a game, how you guys organize a game, that he continues to come back and work with you. Let's go. He kind of has an understanding of what you deal with at the same time, and not at least one domain. And I'm not sure, but I don't know if you worked with Bubba.
I did quite a bit, yeah.
So in an idea, you have a relationship, an idea of what Bubba's dealt with and how you communicate is in a sort of
Well,
how
your
you learn to
grandpa,
work with each other.
I'll tell you right now, never made an excuse not to go to work. Some ways it was a little bit of a detriment because he worked a lot of overtime to try and get ahead and pay for things. So there was a little bit of a bit of a disconnect, I guess. But he's a worker. He's worked ever since he was like 4 or 5 years old, and
On the farm
in northern Saskatchewan. So you got to have a lot of respect for him and what he can do. And even now, with his health and the way he's taking care of your grandma with all her problems, right? He's taking that all on himself. So if you can't have respect for that, there's something fucking wrong with you, right? That in itself is what's lacking in society. People just find it too easy to give their kid a cell phone or give them their credit card. They're trying to be their friends too much. They're not establishing any boundaries. Like my daughter, I'll give you an example, and people won't like me hearing me saying this, but I'll kind of leave the discussion on this note. But years ago, I was at home. I was laying on the couch. I was having a nap. The kids were home, and I kind of woke up and I said, "Geez, can you hand me the remote?" She says, "No, I don't have to." I said, "Why not?" She says, "Mommy said you're lazy." I wasn't happy with that. I said, "Well, you better give me that remote if you know what's good for you." She says, "I don't have to." I said, "Why not?" So she says, "We had a thing today at school talking about child abuse and all this stuff, and they gave us this number if they call." So she was explaining all this stuff, and she's always kind of had it. She was very A-type and whatnot. you know, she was very strong-willed, and I said,
strong-willed.
She is, and she says, "You can't do that." And I said, "Oh." I said, I said, "I'm quite happy they had that discussion with you." She said, "Are you?" I said, "Yeah, I am." I said, I said, "I work with a lot of people they had trauma as a result of parental abuse." And I said, "I totally get that. There's no excuse for that. But," I said, "I'll tell you one thing right now." She goes, "What?" I said, "Now that I know you got that number. Whatever I do, I better make it worth my fucking while. You better give me that remote." Oh, geez, I got that remote so quick. And bang, I had it. And I said, "Thank you." And it's funny because when she was just here visiting from Montreal, she totally forgot about that story. And she's like, "Oh, like this. I didn't remember that you said that." And I said, "Yeah, but it would never have happened." But the reason I told that story is that there is a boundary there that was set by her, which I commend her for, but also it wasn't an excuse not to do what you're asked to do, to be respectful to your parents, right? So that in a nutshell is a lesson in life. And I'm not telling people it's okay to threaten your kids or anything like that. Nothing at all. But that's one of those things that's kind of missing. It's missing not being able to fight your own battles. You have to communicate with your kids. You have to listen to them. And then if you disagree with it, you have to find a way to tell them that they understood that what they're doing is not acceptable, right? I don't know. It's just kind of how I feel. So what do you think? What do you think?
Well, I think it's definitely good that when you saw her, you definitely said that you would have never done that. And I mean, even how you said it was kind of like, I think, a little bit more joking. Like, "Oh, I get one go if I do this, so you you better not push it to that point because I really make the most of it." I almost feel like that was a little playful to the point where she let it go too, and that she did give you the remote. She was funny, and it was a little something. And I mean, I do even think through that conversation there's a little bit of understanding about something, instead of just being toxically coddled, I think. And I think, always giving in or trying to shape someone doesn't give them an understanding of themselves or where they're going. And I think that's something that you valued. And while both your kids have been out on their own, they've definitely had adventures, have been able to navigate and take responsibility and do things. Whereas, you know, I feel like it was very much all or nothing in my experiences. It was a little bit different. I don't feel like I quite had the same relationship.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about your grandparents. They never rose a hand to me or your mom. It wasn't acceptable, you know. So we never did that to my kids. But your great grandfather, he was a different kettle of fish. He was tough. I heard some really nasty stories about what he did. And, you know, that was a completely different time. He grew up in a different time. He fought for the mounted police in Siberia and was found twice in the dead pile. He had been bayoneted and suffered from PTSD. And, you know, he...
And when they came back, they forgot about him. That's something I don't know if that I've found in papers now.
Yeah.
Where the military actually denied that he actually went off to Russia.
Yeah.
When he had the scars on his chest when he came back.
Yeah, he was tough. And I'll tell this one story, and then we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
And we'll have more discussions later on. And if people enjoy us talking, please leave a comment and to like, share, subscribe, whatever, just so that we know that, you know, maybe it helped. But your great grandpa, your grandpa was telling me a story one day, and he says, "Oh, he was fucking mean." I said, "Was he?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "You want to know how mean he was?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like to know." And if you saw pictures of him when he was young, he looked like a modern day powerlifter. Like he was built.
Well, he was logging from when he was 8 years old.
Yeah, 8 or 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
In Markham, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
This is like right around 1900 or so.
Lifting logs and that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, and you know, when they worked and they ate good, everything was pure. But anyways, when your grandpa was little, I guess the old guy was saddling a horse, and the horse didn't want to be saddled. So he was getting frustrated with the horse. What do you think he did?
Knocked the horse out.
He walked to the front of the horse, grabbed it by the reins, fucking drove it right between the eyes, and the horse dropped to the ground.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah, someone that's seen that happen. And I do want to mention that is a thing that even modern militaries, even the Russian military today does. They try to erase people from actually saying that they participated in combat so that they don't have to give them compensation.
Yeah, he was
illiterate, right? He didn't, he as far as I was
told, he had no education.
So he couldn't defend himself. It is what, you know, another reason why lawyers get paid so much. 50% of Canadians are actually by UN standards illiterate. So, but yeah, please.
But anyways, he was, so that's the type of environment that your grandpa grew up in. So for him not to be like that and have such kindness really is quite remarkable, because normally when there's violence in the household, it continues because people do what they've been nurtured to or they're accustomed to, right?
And he also, Bubba was really close to Uncle Guy and other brothers and that kind of stuff. And
yeah, they had to take care of one another.
I even feel like that's something how me and Lil feel so differently from my folks, is that me and her really have helped each other through thick and thin and given each other understanding and developed our own forms of communication. And I found that tremendously advantageous, my relationship with her as a sibling. and it's, and I have other family where I haven't had the privilege to do that with, and I definitely feel the impact and loss of that at the same time. But and Bubba obviously felt differently and definitely had a very close connection with his mom that he
Oh,
talks
for sure.
about to this day, right? So I think part of it was him feeling differently and allowing himself to leave for
Oh yeah,
something
when
more.
he left, he left.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the only place he could go to was join the Navy, right?
And he hitchhiked,
Yeah,
which is quite an amazing story. And when he went back to visit, he also hitchhiked
yeah.
in his uniform.
Well, Max, I think we're gonna have to call this interview a day now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
I hope it helps somebody out there, and
yeah.
um, I know there's some people that are, that have kind of restarted this channel. It's not very carnivore oriented in a sense, but you know, life isn't as easy as just a diet because we need to heal our trauma and reset our behavior patterns. And if you want just the easy fix without working on everything, it's only going to last for so long. That's just my opinion, right?
Well, what I would say, concluding this though, but I do feel that the carnivore is one thing that helped you advance in one realm of understanding, and
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of seeing healing as a dynamic because our bodies and our lives operate in a dynamic with the world, with our environment, with our relationships, with the food we eat, what we breathe, and how we sleep and etc. Right? These are all things that work together to create a well-being and lifestyle. And I think you're just really advancing that the carnivore diet give you one level of understanding and one advancement in your well-being, and you're really starting to take into account the other dynamics in which that has a relationship to.
Okay.
So.
You didn't even run out of air with that. Anyways, we're gonna call it a day. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah,
everybody out
yeah.
there, remember one thing: whether you're a guy, girl, bluesman, biker, stoic, rainbow warrior, whatever you are, the most important thing in life is to be kind. Be kind to people, have a smile on your face, open the door, say thank you. You never know what's going on in somebody else's life, so please try and pass the least amount of judgment as possible. Okay? Have a great day.